Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Slice of the Reef, our new podcast that demystifies the art of saltwater fish keeping. My name is Billy.
And I'm Giancarlo, aka Banana or Fishy Fish. We're going to be your guides today into the amazing world beneath the waves, but also in the box in your living room. Crazy, huh?
Enjoy and easy reefing.
Hey guys, welcome to Slice of the Reef. We're excited because today we have a guest with us, Jay, who is a zooanthid veteran. You know, he's been in the hobby, in the aquarium hobby, way back since 1991, and he's been doing saltwater since 96. And so for like the last decade, he has focused primarily on zoas. This guy has the coolest zoas, the largest zoa garden that I've seen, and it is very, very well.
I was going to say thank you for the kind word, Zoa veteran. I feel like I've made it, that I've achieved. So thank you for the intro. It's nice to be here with you guys.
I mean, you've been in the hobby since before I've been alive. So I think aquarium veteran too.
Banana's only like 10, so that's not saying too much.
It's all right.
No, it's always fun when people are like, oh yeah, you know, well, how long have you been at it? Oh, you know, like 2016, 2017, you know, I started out with some goldfish in a 5-gallon bowl, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And it's like, oh man, because yeah, you know, like started off, you know, as so many people do. I have an older brother who's 6 years older than me, and he started working at the local neighborhood pet store. And one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, he's bringing home silver arowanas and cichlids and, you know, just all this different stuff. And my poor father was beside himself because my mother was into breeding birds. So we, not to mention, I grew up on the Fox River, so like any turtles or frogs or anything that we could catch and drag into the house, we did. It's a wonder stuff didn't end up eating all the other stuff, but yeah, so, you know, going that far back. But then, you know, I cut my teeth. I started working at this pet store with my brother in 97. He got me started in saltwater a little bit before then. First aquarium was a 20-gallon tall with live rock caulerpa, a skilter, which was a hybrid between a power filter and a protein skimmer. Was not very efficient tool for skimming, but and then I got a baby Achilles hybrid when I went with my brother's APET, and it cost me $50 back in 1997, if you can believe that. So.
Do you know what it was a hybrid with? Like an Achilles?
Oh, it's an Achilles gold rim hybrid.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, no, that's one of my favorite fish. But no, so, you know, working at this pet store was Oasis Pet Center. It's up there in Wakanda, a little north of Geo there. You know, I worked there, cut my teeth, got to work with, you know, a lot of cool stuff. And that was the Wild West back in the 90s, where, you know, I'd go down to APET when it was at the original facility, and you would see all kinds of crazy stuff coming in, and all kinds of coral. And, you know, for a 14, 15-year-old kid, that was really cool. And then I also spent some time in high school. I worked at the sister store that was up in McHenry. That's Pet Central. I think they've moved, but I think that business is still kicking after all these years. But yeah, you know, beyond that, then I took some time, went to college, whatever. Great Recession hit, and then I found myself doing aquarium maintenance, aquarium service maintenance for a shop out of Roscoe Village in the north side. So I did that for a while. I got to work on some cool aquariums. Really, if you want to get good at this, try working on a bunch of different aquariums with negligent owners that won't really listen to you. But that was fun. That was cool. I got to do a lot of cool stuff. And like one of my last days on the job, I had to deliver a 120-gallon aquarium. It was a 4x2 by 20, whatever, to a guy that used to work and have the job that I was then leaving. And I'll never forget going in there, and this is like January 2010, right? And so I get the aquarium up there, and I get in, and he's like, "You want to see my stuff?" And it's like, "I'm tired. I just, you know," he's like, "Check it out." And he had Ked's Reds, he had like King Midas, he had like a Rasta, and it like blew my mind. And so that's sort of what planted the seed.
What do you think the biggest change was in the hobby from when you first started to now?
I think the biggest change is just the barriers to entry into the hobby. Back in the 90s, we had a certain number of service accounts through the store. And, these were all 75-gallon Oceanic, 90-gallon Oceanic. A lot of them were Reef ready, which was, novelty at the time. And Oceanic aquariums, they're basically a tank. They can go through anything. But, all the aquariums, people were running 250, 400 watt metal halide bulbs. And you throw two of those over 75 gallons of water. So, people also had to have the chillers and, so it was really in the late 90s, you had power compacts began to come into play. And so then suddenly that made it better because, look, you don't need to run a chiller. The electric bill goes down quite a bit because you're not running halides or a chiller. So, you get more people getting in. And then I believe it was PFO. They used to make metal halide bulbs and ballasts. They were one of the first companies to venture into LED technology. But as I recall, they were sued, and then they ended up going out of business and whatever. And so you had several other companies eventually figure out LED technology. And now we're at the point where we are now, where if you have an AI Prime or a Radeon or whatever, you can create a lightning storm over your aquarium. But no, more specifically though, with that technology, suddenly you see some of these nanos and some of these picos out there where they're 3 gallons or they're 5 gallons, and you see some of the stuff that people are keeping. It's absolutely incredible. So that's far and away one of the largest changes I've seen is just that not only are the barriers lower, but then also the free flow of information. I can't tell you how many books at the pet store that we got that were in German. Or Dutch or whatever. I still have some of these, and obviously want to get the translations because I don't speak German or Dutch. But nowadays, you've got so many resources, including this podcast, where people can go talk to other people and whatever their niche is in the hobby. You can find, you can generally find someone who can help you out. So I think that's also, those are the biggest changes. But then beyond that, it's quite obviously just the branding, the aquaculture, and then, what was once a cottage industry. You sell coral, I'll come over buy some, nowadays it's, it's a business onto itself. So those would probably be the big three I would call out.
Information is so much more accessible today too. I feel like I've been in this hobby for a while, and I'm still asking so many questions about the stuff that I'm going through.
Yeah, no, I think you're just a slow learner. I don't ask any questions.
I am a very slow learner.
It's a muscle, you gotta work it, you gotta grow, But the thing is, at the end of the day, I'll tell you a funny story. Back in the 90s, we used to sell these phosphate pads that would suck all the phosphate out of the water, and the things were super expensive, whatever. And the nitrates, you wanted 0 nitrates and 0 phosphates, and anything above that was detrimental to your coral. And some stuff, Ghani's, most notably, people are oh, don't buy those. Don't buy Dendrophilia. Don't buy, Turbastia. Don't buy any of those because they're just going to die. And it's well, why do they die? And people are oh, we don't know. They die. And also no phosphates, no nitrates. And, you take what was common knowledge and dogma 25 years ago, and you look at it and it's no, you need to feed those things, and then they'll do just fine. And you have to have some nitrates and you have to have some phosphates in your aquariums. So
yeah, similarly, I mean, obviously we've learned a lot and we've come a long way from those days, but there is still a lot of benefit in either defying or being skeptical of anecdotal advice. So there are a lot of people out there that can help you, but some of them are literally repeating the same anecdotes that have been repeated for 20 years, even though they've been debunked or disproven or kind of shuffled off to the side.
Yeah, and that's when I see all the time with zoanthids in particular. I hear it to the point, I see it to the point where I'm just sick. Oh, zoanthids like dirty water. They like high nutrients, and it's Well, first, like we need to establish the fact that nutrition and nutrients are not the same thing, and one is an indirect measurement of the others. You can have a system where you're pumping in a ton of nutrition, reefroids and brine shrimp and cyclopes and whatever phyto. You can drip phyto in there, and if your nutrient export is really keyed in, it's super high, they're getting the nutrition they need. Like, they're gonna be fine. Versus a tank where, like, yeah, you might have high nitrates and high phosphates, but you've got poor nutrient export, and like your ammonia might not be reading, but stuff is just sort of sitting in there. So it's not the same thing, and that's why I think it's really interesting with like people dosing aminos and some of that stuff now you see. So it's crazy because so much of this hobby, it started with World War II servicemen bringing stuff back and tinkering in their garage and tinkering with stuff. And even today, like, we're still tinkering, we're still figuring out new stuff. Gio and I were talking earlier about blue clove polyps, and I believe it's fenzobenzidol's canine dewormer. You can actually you can use it, and it will kill off blue clove polyps out of your system. And like, someone was screwing around, and someone was like treating a fish for something else, and they sort of put two and two together. So it is really interesting where, like, yeah, sometimes bad or old or misstated information or ideas can stick around, but then there's also so many like happy accidents that people figure out, and then they get that out there, and then when other people are able to repeat those same results, man, like that's awesome. And that's why the reefing community is cool, because people they share that. So
we're accidental scientists. So we do have a lot of questions for you, especially about zoas, but we do typically start off each episode by talking about updates on our tank.
Yes.
How our individual like little slices of the reef are doing, different issues and struggles we've had. Banana, how's your tank going?
My tank is good. I'm at a very bittersweet point where I am kind of done with the tank. Like, for those of you that know, I'm moving across the country in the next week, actually. next week. And so I'm gonna say I could buy temporarily for the tank, at least for the next few years. My father will be maintaining it, and I guess it'd be cool because I would get to go away and I'll come back and see all this growth going on, and then go away and I'll come back again in a few months and I'll see all this growth going on again. So it'll feel like I'm time-lapsing, but I'm definitely gonna miss having a tank for the next few weeks, months, years even. I don't know, it'll be a while. I'm definitely gonna have a tank at some point in the future, but I gotta see where I'm at first and get stabilized in a new location before I can actually set anything up.
Can you bring some filter media over and start a little pico tank?
I mean, the current tank is going to be here, so if I ever want anything, or if I ever want to transfer coral over, I can always just, fly back here, pack it all up, ship it to myself, because I can ship coral now, thanks to Jay, I can ship coral now.
So for the low price of an airplane ticket, you can get your own stuff. But I mean, like, do you want to start something in your new location?
I want to so badly. It's going to be like a struggle to resist starting it until I'm stable both financially and like as far as life goes, because I know it's a whole new environment. It's a whole new, like social ecosystem as far as the aquarium community goes. And I don't know if I'm going to be in like the center of a dead zone, or if I'm going to be in the center of like other hobbyists or whatnot.
We'll find you shops. We'll find stuff. I mean, you probably already know all the shops in Washington, so.
There's like 3 or 4 that are.
Yep, there we go.
Washington overall has about 15 shops. But Seattle itself has about 4 or 5. Yeah, it's bittersweet. The tank looks amazing. I'm leaving it in a very, very happy state. I want to go down later and take some pictures of it as many as I can, so I have a lot to edit or like to work on. Until then, though, this podcast will keep me going. How about you, Billy? How's your tank doing?
Call out. Are you going to have like a maintenance person come in? Or is your dad going to have a maintenance person to replace you?
No, he does it. My father and I have been doing this together, actually. Like, we have been running the tank together. He's really up with the hobby as well, as much as I am, really. So I'm perfectly confident that the way that we're leaving things, he can maintain it, he can fix things, and he's very smart as well. So that Like any issues that come up, he's very good at fixing them.
You should have your dad give me a call. I absolutely love that aquarium.
Yeah.
So I will definitely come over and schlep water for him. So.
Oh, 100%, man. Like whenever frags you want, I've got you. Like I said earlier, I have a few frags ready for you whenever you're ready.
That's what you get for guest appearances on the podcast. We pay you in frags. My tanks are doing well. My anemone keeps doing laps around the tank, so I moved the light to one side to see if I can get it to kind of stay put. But the problem is the light is so strong that he probably has all the energy he needs to just continue doing laps. So I'm figuring that out. It's not a problem because it's the only thing in the tank. Thank God, because if there was anything else alive in that tank besides a bunch of Calopa from my fuge, it would all be dead from this roaming murderous anemone. But my clowns are good. I thought I lost one of the porcelain crabs that was on my nem, but it actually just molted. So there's still 2 living loud and strong. That's not a saying, but they're living loud and strong on the anemone along with the clownfish. The main tank is fine. I lost a couple damsels last week. I don't remember if I talked about this, but I think I got a little bit low on oxygen in my tank overnight.
I think you told me, yeah.
So I lost a couple.
Something about it.
The majority of my stock is fine. My frag tank's finally stabilized. I kept getting outbreaks of brown jelly, and I'm obviously not going to sell any corals while there's brown jelly in the frag tank. So I've been kind of on pause there. I think I'll probably do a big water change, watch it for another week, and then start selling again if I don't see any other outbreaks.
Yeah.
That's about it though. Aquas are doing really well. I keep having to up my calcium dosing or my alpha reef dosing because I dose all 3 at once. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Cool. Jay, tell us about your setup. What are you running?
Yeah, right on. So I moved right about 2 years ago. I had been in a 220 with the 125 piggybacked, and so the 125 was my sandbox, and the 220 was the display. My new house, I have a 125 display for the time being. Got 2 little kids and a lot of bills. So eventually, I'll do the upgrade, but I also want to do some work. Basically, that display is on the opposite side of the house of the fish room and my water source. So that 125, it's a pretty good size. But no, over the last year, I've gotten it dialed in. It's pretty close to where it needs to be. As always with aquariums, you have multiple tank syndrome, and suddenly, yeah, exactly. Everybody knows. But no, I've done some work. I've got it dialed in. It's about where it needs to be. I've been dealing with some stubborn turf algae, which just is not. It's on the downtrend. That display, it's a mixed reef. It's SPS and LPS heavy. I've been trading with a lot of friends again recently, bringing SPS back in. I lost a lot of what I had in the move. So that 125 is just kind of self-sustaining. The main inhabitants, I've got a Comet that I've had for 3 years. Got an Achilles hybrid that I just absolutely love. And I've got a Fowleri Tang, which, they're gorgeous. Now he's getting to the size where he can go cobalt in his face, and he's gorgeous. I love him.
Yeah, your Fowleri is really, really cool.
How big is the Comet?
The Comet, I don't know, but it's a big bowl. It's it's as big as any that I've seen in the aquarium, and I love the personality on that guy, and he's just really cool. So we're just talking about what's going on with our tanks, but I'm happy to report stuff is doing really well. Moving and upgrading and then trying to scale, there were a lot of moving pieces. I added a aqua UV sterilizer about 10 to 12 weeks ago, and that was the final piece. So that combined with aggressive coral quarantining before it ever makes it into the trough, things are going great, guys. I could not be happier.
Amazing. All right, so that concludes our reef update section. Does anyone have any upcoming local events in their area? Reefing events, that is.
I don't think I have any. I know we have, I think Reefpalooza is coming up this weekend. But I don't know where.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's at the end of the week. Yeah.
Yeah, this weekend.
I think it's in New York or something.
Yeah. Reefpalooza in New York this weekend. We're not being sponsored by them. We're just sharing it. I think that's it. Nothing local. Is there anything local?
We have our Reefapalooza in August. That's in Costa Mesa or somewhere, like the SoCal area.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Let's go into the next one. The topic of this week is zoas, zoanthids, everything zoanthidy. Thank you for joining us, Jay. Again, like, we really appreciate you taking the time to be here and to listen to the questions that we have and to, just talk to the audience about your overall experience.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for having me. This is one of those things where, I can sit and BS with you guys all day about it. So I'm going to throw out, I will always say what I believe to be true, but I will be the first to admit that I'm human and completely fallible on some of these points. So, I always encourage discourse. And
the only way to learn in the hobby.
Yeah, man, even if you try the exact same recipe as someone else, you can still get different results. Or you could fail entirely. That's why this hobby is so complicated. But that's why it's so much fun.
Some people are still calling them zoos and, zoas and, so whatever. We can't even agree on, like, how we're going to mispronounce Latin or Greek or whatever the case may be, so...
Hey, do you got any zoos for me? I want to put some zoos in my reef tank.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't like that. I don't like whoever.
They're called zoos? I love zoos.
So here's the down low. Zoanthids are a type of soft coral. They're almost like halfway in between normal corals, like the hexacoralia in particular. The octocoralia in particular, and anemones, because they do have a foot, similar to mushroom corals. I think they're like closer to soft corals than mushroom corals are, because they don't sting quite as much, and they can't really, as far as I know, they don't move, at least not quickly, but they're super easy to keep, and more importantly,
Billy, you're misleading people.
Oh, go ahead.
No, just with the easy to keep, because I heard a collective cry go out across your audience being like, but I can't keep them alive.
I have killed one Zoa, but all my other Zoas I've tried to keep, and I killed those Zoas because I had copper in my water and that didn't work out. But actually, they didn't die. Once I got the copper out of the water, they opened back up.
They're resilient, man, and I'll tell you right now, the biggest difference. My brother was a stick guy. Is a stick guy. He's up in Canada, so I think the pickings are a little bit slimmer now. But SPS will break your heart, and they'll do it over the course of a day or two. And the thing that I absolutely love about zoanthids is that they're tough. Not always, but certain ones are very tough, and they'll generally always give you a chance to save them. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to save them, but a lot better than having to break up a big SPS colony. I know we've all been there where
Yeah, SPS, they piece them out and then they're gone the next day.
And then you're either left with a bunch of like little crappy frags that some might make it, or the worst case scenario is that you just end up with a really nice curio, for your cabinet or whatever. So
we all have a bucket of dead SPS. Every experienced reefer has a bucket. Do you have a bucket, Jay?
Yeah, I've got a bucket. I actually worked at a health club in college, and we had sorbet, and they would come in the buckets with like the pop tops. And I've got one of those absolutely filled with coral skeletons. And one day my kids and I are going to do something cool with it, or I'm going to get a calcium reactor, and I got free media for like the first year or so. So
that being said, I would bleach and then dechlorinate the skeletons before you use them, because if you keep them wet, whatever killed them might still be lingering.
Oh, I can imagine muriatic acid. Anything that's rock, I muriatic acid the crap out of it.
Well, muriatic acid, if you pour that in with a bunch of coral skeletons, once you dissolve them down...
The outer layer, but I'd rather have like a little bit of dissolved media than...
You're dissolving off the potentially bad parts.
Yeah, all of that stuff, all the
or
other
at least
stuff.
The parts that'll rot and raise your nutrients as well as your calcium and stuff. Or you can just buy aragonite because it is not expensive.
or you can do that.
Okay, so sorry, we got off topic a little bit. Zoanthids, right? So I was actually wrong. They are hexacoralia, not octocoralia. That I swapped them. So octocoralia are the more stony corals oriented. Most of them are photosynthetic, but they do evolve from a bunch of like ancient Paleothoa and Zoas. They're relatively related. that are either non-photosynthetic or rely more heavily on either really turbid, nutrient-rich waters or just snagging prey out of the water column. But most importantly, almost every species of Zoa has a really awesome and really unique color combination. I don't know if they've been sipping on kryptonite or there's uranium leaking into the water, but those things freaking glow. So there's a lot of people who try to collect all the coolest ones. There's expensive color combinations. There's cheap color combinations. There's really ugly ones that some people like for some reason. There's really pretty ones that no one will buy because they're too expensive. There's a whole wide range of collectoritis and culture and technique behind collecting, raising, and selling these corals. So that's why I'm really happy to have LittleBigReef with us, because he's been not only keeping them for a long time, but also actively selling and actively culturing and selling them. We're going to learn a lot today about how to, again, find really easy ones as a beginner, and then how to scale up your craft to eventually monetize it if you are so inclined.
Go down that route. So let's start with the nitty-gritty, like the very basic of it. What are the best and the worst Zoas for the beginners?
Okay, so there's it's one of those and questions because you just launch into it. But the first one, what Billy was talking about, corals are a varying degree of autotrophic towards heterotrophic, where if you're autotrophic, you can derive most of your energy from the sun. You don't really need additional nutrition. I think the most prime example of that, if I'm not mistaken, with coral, which is obviously an animal, not a plant, is actually Xenia. And then you have obviously some corals like a bubble coral, for example, where like that thing needs to eat, So what I'm going to say is something that my high school teacher, Miss Hopper, drilled into us very early, is that form follows function. So with these zoanthids, the ones that are a little bit larger, that have a larger skirt, they're able to, either pull nutrients out of the water, or if you're broadcast feeding or target feeding, those are going to be generally some of the easier ones to keep. Some of the most difficult ones to keep are like your micros, and so specific strains, there's deliriums, and there's like OG poker chips, and there's some of these where they came into the hobby, they were around for a little bit, and no one was able to have sustained success keeping them. So kind of understanding that like key thing about Zoas is very important. Zoas want to eat. All corals want to eat. Zoanthids want to eat. Some of them have more of a feeding response than others. So that being the case, the easiest ones to keep are going to be kind of like your mid-sized, like orange Bam Bams, King Midas, whatever. You got to bear in mind that when you have a mixed reef aquarium, or even if you're doing like a Zoa farm or something like that, they, not all of these guys are coming from the same place on the reef, or even on the reef at all. Some of them are coming from, low tide areas and stuff like that. So that being the case, there are some of these guys where occasionally you'll hear like, flaming Mohicans are difficult to keep, or ass cracks are difficult to keep. And the real reality of the matter is that they just need a certain combination of both light and nutrients to do well for you. There's other ones though, like I mentioned, the Rastas or King Midas or Bam Bams, where those guys are able to tolerate a far wider range of water parameters, light, nutrition, and just also they're better able to tolerate like alkalinity swings and some of the other things that we're forever trying to minimize in our aquariums. So the best ones to start with are generally what's considered the common strains and whatever. The worst ones to keep are, like I said, like Mohicans, a number of the ass cracks not ass cracks, but the Krakatoas where they rift on it. A lot of those can be a little bit more difficult to keep just because they're not quite as tolerant, and they're not going to do quite as well in a mixed reef aquarium as they will in like a species tank. So that's my somewhat shortish answer to that question.
So when you say ass cracks repeatedly, what are you talking about?
So Jason Fox, named these, and it's one of the worst names I feel like for Zoas.
Yeah.
But it's a shame because they're also my favorite. They're absolutely gorgeous. So a long time ago, Rudy of Golden Basket brought in a couple of these zoanthids, and this was probably in like 2011 or 2012, and he dubbed them Krakatoas. You got 2 seconds, plug into Google, Krakatoa Zoa. These things are ridiculous. It looks like something my kid colored. They're like orange and green and red, and they're just ridiculous. They're gone. Those melted. They were never able to find another patch of them. It's a big ocean. You'd think this stuff grows in more than a 2x2 patch. But that Krakatoa name, well, hey, it's pretty cool. So Jason Fox ripped on that with ass cracks. There's also pink cracks. There's like butt cracks. There's queen cracks. And so that's part of the name game, which can be both pervasive and like very irritating with zoanthids because people tend to use it more as a marketing tool than as like a way to say like, this is what I have, and for another person to know exactly what they're talking about. So
yeah, it's a shortcut, and all shortcuts have downsides, but I do think especially in a species that's as varied and as
diverse,
evolving as Zoa importing and Zoa culturing, like all of my utter chaos look unique from one another. They're slowly going to morph into something that looks like either the next Grandmaster Krakatoa or a completely ugly shitty coral.
And man, oh man, do I love utter chaos, because you can have those at 3 different points in your aquarium, all under slightly different par, and they're all going to present completely differently. And so, that's just one example that makes the name game and naming and stuff like that problematic. And that's one thing where I have people coming to me for IDs, and so you get reps and you see stuff under different conditions and different lighting over a period of time, and you can say with some degree of certainty, this is that, whatever. But the fact is that there's like, I think there's a handful of like main species, but then these are all just, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but these are all just mutations and variations within a species. So kind of like humans, you have Shaquille O'Neal and Danny DeVito. They're both members of the human race, but
both so tall. Oh my god.
Exactly. Or even Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, if you guys remember the movie Twins, which is well, I'm dating myself now, but yeah. So that was what turned me on to zoanthids as well, is the fact that like there are just so many different varieties, because in the late 90s and even into the 2000s or so, like you see cool stuff pop up now and again, but like if we saw a metallic blue mushroom in 1998, like people would lose their stuff over that. Nowadays, like people are a little spoiled, but with all the stuff that we're aquaculturing, we also have to acknowledge the fact that like a lot of it is artificial. This stuff is not the stuff that we have in a lot of our aquariums is not what it's going to look like if you're out snorkeling on the reef. So
So in short, if you want to use nicknames, use them as a shortcut to get to the colors that you want in your tank, not to get the exact replica species of this highly edited photo you saw on the internet.
Yeah, I saw you post that. That's juiced a little bit, but by the same token, I've got one buddy, Garrett, and his are just wild because they look exactly like that and they're gorgeous. I can never get mine to color up quite like that.
Okay, let's see.
What are some fish that you would not recommend to put with Zoas? Like fish that generally you wouldn't recommend, because I know there's always a fish that's like, oh, this fish usually won't, but then this one of it will.
Well, you mean like a aptasia eating filefish?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that you weren't even my only friend who was like dealing with that at the time. I had another at another buddy where he's like, I just don't know what's going on, but the filefish is fat. And I'm like, I've heard this story.
It was a filefish. For those that don't know, I had an incident a few months ago where I got a bunch of zoas from Jay, and they were in the frag tank, they were doing fine. And this is while the frag tank was still kind of like cycling a little bit. So they were all open, happy, puffy, covered in algae because the frag tank had nothing to take care of the algae. The moment I put them in the main tank, the algae would be gone because of the tanks, and then the zoas would be open for a day or two, and then they would close up and they would slowly melt away. And I had no clue what happened. I was losing zoas, I was losing trachys, I was losing acanthos. I had no clue what was going on until we caught the filefish, like kind of red-handed, basically. He was picking at the acantho. We took him out, and within like a week, the zoas started opening up again. Or what was left of the zoas, which was like of the dozen or so that I got from you, I had 2 or 3 left, and those were finally opening up again. And yeah, everything's been good since we got rid of that filefish. Never again. I haven't appreciating filefish.
You got rid of him mafia style. You whacked him.
No. I gave it forward to someone that had a fish only. Yeah.
I was gonna say if you gave it to someone with other corals and you're like, no, I just ate all my aptasia, I'm done with it. And then they pass it on like a curse.
Oh man.
But yeah, all joking aside, aptasia eating filefish will go rogue eventually. Anything you put in there to target one thing, like once it exhausts its food supply, it's going to start going after other stuff. So the very obvious ones, angelfish, whether they're the dwarfs or like the holocanthus, pomacanthus, and it's a shame because those are obviously some of the most beautiful fish. The Chaetodonopus, I believe some of those you can get away with. And so that's going to be like your scribbleds, your blue line, not the annularis, but the blue line.
It's a wrasse?
No, angel.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I missed that.
And but the Genicanthus angels, which are unloved, and it's a shame because they're awesome. But Genicanthus angels are completely good to go.
I love my Genicanthus. Genicanthus are amazing. I don't get the hate for them. Swallowtails are beautiful. Tiger swallowtails are beautiful. The Japanese ones are just breathtaking.
Yeah, there's a semifasciatus, which is kind of similar to spot-breasted, but the males have like a yellow band through their eye, and the females have like these blue rings around their eyes. They're gorgeous. That's what I'm waiting for, and that's going to absolutely break the bank, but I will love it when I can finally add one of those. So
swallowtails are good too. The Watanabes, not swallowtail. Watanabes are good too. I have a pair of Watanabes, and they don't touch coral. I think any angel that's around that body shape, right?
Yeah, well, and it's because they're both, they're angelfish, but these are superficial, groupings that we've decided on, to a certain degree. Angels and damsels are also fairly closely related, but it's obviously. So the other one though that I'll drop is and I know this, my friend Dan, him and his partner, they used to own Insane Coral, and this back in like 2011 2012. One of the fellows went away for the weekend. Tank was on autopilot, and he had a large foxface go rogue, and it like mowed everything down. And so fox faces are another one where and I think people are a little bit more aware of that now, but a fox face will go rogue on you and start eating stuff too. So those would be the main ones to avoid. I've
been really lucky, I've never had a fish prey on my zoas, but I also am rigorously avoidant of reef safe with caution fish. I only really do the reef safe ones. So I've never owned an angel, for example.
Yeah, some angels, like the ones that he just listed, are good to go as far as angels go. But you have a smaller tank, so I don't think you'll be able to get away with the bigger angels.
Yeah, if I did get a bigger tank, I would definitely get swallowtails. You've inspired me to do that.
Swallowtails are beautiful. Awesome. The Bellis is a nice one too. I have a Bellis, a swallowtail, and a pair of Watanabes. Wow. And I'm happy with all of them.
You're a Genicanthus simp, apparently.
Hey, they're the only ones that I can keep. If I ever had an incident where my tent crashed and I lost my coral, I would go full fish only. I'm talking like the big, beautiful angels, the bigger butterfly fish.
If I ever lost anything, I've already got the vision figured out. I do a pair of Asper angels and then a harem of flame angels, and I just get like 6 or 7 flame angels from biota or whatever. Get the little babies so you can raise them together, and that would be that. So
here's a question: copper band. Have you guys kept those, and have you had any issues?
I've had one last week. No, last 2 months I've had one, and it has had no issues yet. Biggest thing being yet. I know those are either hit or miss. They're either gonna come when they arrive. They either die within the week, or they'll live, and then they're gonna eat up the Aptasia, or they're gonna starve to death. The Aptasia's there, and he's picking at pellets when the fish get fed. So I don't think he's. I don't know. It's up in the air. Who knows what'll happen?
Yeah, no. So I'll tell you right now. Those are one of those guys where you can get like clams or mussels from like Jewel. Crack them, toss them in there, and that should get the copper band eating, hopefully. Any of those longer nose ones, you can try that. It also doing the same thing that generally tends to work with Achilles tangs too. But no, what I'll say is this: I did have a copper band at one point, and he was a good citizen for a long time. Cleaned the tank of Aptasia, and then he went rogue, and then I didn't have acans, and then he starved to death despite being well fed, and that was that. So really, with the butterflies, it's like the tinkery. And I think there's like a Burgess or Bergassi or something. There's a handful of those, but like a copper band, I wouldn't trust. And if you are looking to add a copper band to like any system, the big ones, they should not be collecting. You're always probably going to want to err on the side of caution, go with a smaller specimen, leave the bigger ones at the store. The store will eventually get a clue, not get them from the collectors, and hopefully the collectors will leave them in the damn ocean. So
are they illegally importing these adult specimens, or is it just unethical because they're more prone to issues?
I would argue it's unethical. And so, going back to like the late 90s, like you would see heartbreak butterflies. So you'd see like the Larvatus, they're gorgeous. They've got a gray body with these like white chevron markings, and they have like a rusty orange face. Absolutely gorgeous, but they're obligate coralivores. So, that's not going to eat anything other than acros. There's like the Myari, where they're like, once again, just gorgeous. They're solid yellow. Those ones, if I remember correctly, they have like some orange, and then they've got like a black and white mask, and and so in the late 90s, like people would import these, and whatever, and they eventually, you don't really see these anymore. You're not going to like log on to Live Aquaria and see them offered, just because the mortality rate is unfortunately probably like 95 to 100% on those over the course of 9 to 12 months. So, and as consumers, and I'll get up on my soapbox until someone knocks me off, but
hell yeah,
we have a responsibility that if we can't feed it and we can't take care of it, as a consumer, we need to not buy it. Stores won't buy it. Collectors will stop collecting it, leave it in the ocean. And, that's the case with some of these fish. They need very specific foods, also like show size fish. There's some things that we just don't need to pull out of the ocean. So,
yeah, I'm really jealous of some of the more organized pet keeping hobbyists. So like herp keepers, reptile, amphibian keepers seem to be a lot more organized than us, even in just like political action. So like making sure that their specific species that they want to keep are ethically sourced and then are legally sourced, and that the laws stay up to date with that kind of stuff. I wish there was a way for us to directly influence what the collectors collect, so it wasn't the LFSs, the local fish stores, controlling that stuff, because that's so far removed from actually being able to influence what they're bringing in that I feel relatively powerless. Like I see my local fish store buy batfish 3 times a year.
I haven't seen those in a while, actually.
Okay, that's good. Maybe it's just mine.
You know, and I believe it's biota. They're aquaculturing the pinatus ones now, which, you know, that fish gets enormous and it is not very pretty after a very specific sort. So
I stand corrected. The reptile industry is not organized. I wish we were all organized and we just all came together in one big happy family.
no, look, at the end of the day, you know, it starts with the consumer. If you're not buying it, it's not dying in your tank, it's going to die in the tank at the store. If it dies in the tank in the store, that store is not going to bring it in. And if that is sitting on the list and collectors are collecting it and, you know, they have a bunch of them and they're dying their stuff, eventually they'll stop collecting. And it is, you know, I'm sorry, but it's shitty beyond belief. But like, that's the kind of action that it takes. And that's the responsibility that we have. Because we have to remember all this stuff that's getting pulled out of the ocean, you know, it's not going back in the ocean. I mean, some people are letting lionfish go in Florida. But this stuff, it's removed from the gene pool. And, you know, with all the other stuff going on, you know, so that's why, you know, fish are going to die. Coral are going to die. We have a moral responsibility that if something does die, well, you need to learn something from that. You need to make it count. And I say this, I unfortunately have, you know, been responsible for the deaths of a number of fish and coral over the years. But that being said, like I was talking to Gio about this earlier. I also have a frag of coral that has been growing between me and my brother since like 2003, you know. One of my chromis I've had since 2014. So, you know, and most of my fish are actually, you know, 4 or 5 years in now at this point. So yeah, that's what it comes down to, you know, and that's why you got to appreciate the work that Biota is doing. And, you know, just the fact that, like, at some point, if exportation does completely shut down or go away, there's enough coral where this is going to be able to keep going on. The fish thing, that gets a little tougher.
It gets tougher, but we're just not going to have the almost excessive variety of fish getting imported. We're going to have, like, all the stuff that could be captive bred, and I think we'd be fine. We could honestly all just switch to keeping lionfish that are wild caught, and, like, I would be fine. I wouldn't mind. Those things are freaking cool. And I want them out of the ocean because they're freaking invasive.
You know, and I mean, I have a thing for, you know, tangs, you know, as most people do. They are the house cat to every reef keeper's aquarium. So, you know, you start with one, next thing you know, you got 3, and then you're either upgrading the aquarium or you're buying 5 more, and then you're going to double upgrade. So
I feel that all too well. I love my tanks. I could not imagine a tank without a tank.
Yeah, well, you got some gorgeous ones, man. You've got that powder blue hybrid, which I've seen them. I've never seen one so well conditioned. You know, that's very obviously been well taken care of in someone's tank for, you know, for a while. That fish is awesome. So
You just feed a lot. I feed 4 sheets of nori a day, and it's getting out of hand. I feed a lot of nori. I have a stack. I have they like. I don't know why, but my tanks prefer the Omega 1. The red nori. I feed them the green stuff. I feed them the seaweed nori sheets from the supermarket. They don't go for it. They'll leave it hanging there. I'll come in, put it in the morning, leave it there. I'll come in a few hours later. Like, one will be eaten, but that's it. The moment I drop down the red stuff, they're all over it. They're like piranhas. They devour it, and it's gone in about 15 minutes. So I've got to do that. What's it? 1, 2, 4 sheets of nori twice a day. I go through a whole pack of nori a week.
No, I'll tell you right now, the green nori is like the equivalent of the unfrosted Pop-Tart. Like, you know, you pick up like 3 boxes of Pop-Tarts, like what's going to be the one that's like left over at the end of the week that the kids don't want to eat? It's like the plain Jane one that just has the stuff inside. Yeah, the red stuff, well, you know, that's like the chocolate coated s'more.
They go for it.
Oh, it's like Doritos without the spice on it, the powder. I didn't know that, and that sucks because I still have 15 sheets of green nori left.
They're gonna say 15 bags of Doritos powder.
I have 15 crates.
15 crates of full. Yeah, no, but we order in bulk. Chewy's really great for ordering in bulk like that because they give you the discount. where if you buy X amount, you get like 25% without a renewal or something like that. But it's always a pain in the ass having to find. And they're the only one that sells it in the long, thin sheets that we like. So short of like going to the wild and collecting our own algae, which you can't do because hey, Chicago. We're not. Yeah, we have to order it. It's a lot. But I love my tangs, and I couldn't imagine giving them like any less care, especially since like we pulled them out of the wild.
Do tangs ever eat zoas? Have you seen them eat zoas?
My tangs have not eaten zoas, but I swear, Billy, if you jinx me right now, oh my.
No, well, is it known to be a problem? Like, is that one of the things that they occasionally?
I've seen a story or two online or on Reef to Reef where tangs will go through and like they'll turn to coral. Jay, have you heard of it or no?
No, that's exactly right. Actually, I was going to jump in. So tangs obviously go through growth spurts, and getting enough nutrition in there. When we first moved to Naperville, I was in a 75 gallon. I had a Dulcinea that I got when it was like 2 inches long. They thought it was a Berryenne, so I got it for $50. Go me. And so I had him, and then we moved, and I had him, and he'd gone from 2 inches to like 4.5, whatever. And it was literally literally 2 days before we were leaving for my brother's wedding in Toronto, and stuff had been chewing on zoas, and I didn't have another tank, and I look in there and I see him, and he was fat and big, and he's just cruising around with a zoa colony in his mouth, swimming around, and I'm just like, ah. And so I did the right thing. I called Brian over at Reefwise, and I took him over there, and I gave him away for a pittance. And I sincerely hope that now that fish is like 12 inches long and cruising around in some 400-gallon aquarium in the western suburbs. So I definitely had that happen, but he was going through a growth spurt. I probably could have managed it, but like I just couldn't when I was going to be out of town. And so of course I have a Dulcinea that I'm quarantining right now as well. So we'll see how that goes. But that's the only instance that I know of anecdotally that you had a tank go rogue.
Yeah, my chocolate tang for a while was convinced that my green flower pot, my green alveopora, that was like the size of a softball, was algae. So it would like occasionally nibble at it to the point where it wasn't like dying or anything, but it was constantly shrunk in. So it just looked like this ball of flowers instead of like long tentacled cool things. That Dulcinea looks really cool. Is that the eye-striped surgeonfish? I'm Googling every word you say, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that might be, Dulcinea. It's the Dulcinea.
Dulcineas are really nice.
Yeah, no, they're one of those where, is it a gray fish with a yellow mask and a blue tail? Yeah, but once those things get north of like 7 or 8 inches, they're absolutely gorgeous. So
once the blue comes in and it sets in and like the mask comes in deep yellow,
then the tail is just crazy too. Like it looks, it's like blue with like black markings and like white like it looks like a blue like black hole or something. Like it's hard to explain exactly, but
a blue hole. Got it.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Okay. So we have a few more questions for you. I don't want to take too much of your life. So if someone buys a Zoa and they want to try to figure out if it does have a name, are there any good sites or resources to identifying them?
At the end of the day, Google Images is your friend. I have, my main Instagram account is LittleBigReef. I do have, let me just double check so that I'm not telling people to go to the right place. I do have another handle, Ready Reference Zoas, also on Instagram, where I was getting so many questions that I would like throw them up there, and then I give a brief explanation as to what it is. Zoabrary has been a go-to resource for quite a while. However, it hasn't been updated. I know some people have been adding it. It's one of those things where there's no real gatekeeper for it. Like you got to take it with, with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, like, whether a thing is named or not means very little as to whether or not, like, you appreciate it and you find beauty in it. So yeah, so like Zoaberry is a good place to go to. Then Google images. Like, if it's a green Zoa, Google green Zoa. If it's a orange, and whatever, that'll get you there eventually. There's like Reef to Reef where you can pose that question, but like that is mostly what the Zoa forum is now on Reef to Reef. Is like, hey, what is this? And it's like, it's a Rasta, man. I feel like you could have figured that one out on your own,
What does this fully green Zoa look like? Oh my god, the Emerald Dragon Eye. Non-stop pictures of that one.
Yeah, so, but at the end of the day, like, names should primarily be for like helping people understand like what it is or whatever, but like because the name game is just metastasized into what it is now, like, it's not particularly useful because you have people just using it as a marketing tool. So
what are your thoughts on all like the new names, like when someone puts their own name, like Bananas X and X or whatever like that?
And so look, I'll be very straightforward. Like, there's a number of wilds that I've bought, or I've had sent my way, and I've had them in my system 7-8 months. They're doing good. I propagate them. Those are doing good. I'm ready to let them go, and so I'll throw a name on them. So like, I've named a few things, but they're after like flowers, or I got one. And so actually on my Instagram, I have like a hashtag, and then I've got like the widely recognized name, and then Zoa. So you can go like hashtag butt muncher Zoas, and then that'll actually pull up examples. So it could be a useful tool for some people looking. But no, like, I've got one that I named for my daughter, because it's a bright, happy little Zoa. There's no authority control. There's no one being like, oh, you can call this or you can't call it that or whatever, so. But, I do check and make sure that it's not, out there and like known, and then you get to name it. But that's also how you end up with like flaming Brohicans, sticker shocks, and reverse hallucinations. It's all the same thing. It just went to 3 different vendors,
And they all tried to make their own name for it.
They all put their own name on it, and that's why you see that with like the Predators, which I know that there's a couple different names for those as well, and they were just some collector found a big patch of them and they're coming in, so people are naming them whatever they wanted to. Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, that's fine. That's your right.
The vendors are either not communicating or they're actively sticking their head in the sand and saying, no, this is the name, your name is wrong.
And it's one of those things where you don't want to, necessarily judge someone else's actions on the basis that, they're just trying to get more money or whatever. I do see some of the larger outfits where like, it's just lazy, where, it's very obviously a scrambled egg, but they call it a super cyan, which they're similar, but they're also different enough where even if you're a casual observer, you should be able to tell a difference between the two, whether it's deliberate and, to whatever end people are doing that with, malicious intent. I don't necessarily want to judge our people's actions. I'm just saying that there's no compelling reason for all these vendors to get in line and work together and agree with one name. And so that's why, you'll have a Coral Stop this, or you might have a, Jason Fox that, or a Reef Raft this, whatever the case may be.
So we don't have you for much longer today. We're going to probably hop on a call with you later this week to continue extracting as much information as we can.
Part 2.
Do you want to do questions now, or should we save those for next time?
I tell you what, I got like 4 or 5 minutes here before I'm gonna need to bounce, and this has been great. I totally look forward to hanging out later this week when hopefully I have a little more flexibility. Let's hit a couple questions hard and fast. I saw someone wanted to know if I've ever been pallytoxined, so.
Yes, let's start with that.
So the answer in short is no. I've never had the respiratory distress and that stuff. One of my friends who owns a shop, he was working on rock, was unaware that there were Captain Americas on there, and they were like cutting rock down. They're doing stuff. He got pallytoxined, and he said it was like a terrible fever with cold sweats that lasted 3 days. So, but that being said, I I've cut tens of thousands of zoanthids barehanded now over the years, and in the course of time, I've gotten Zoa juice in my eyes like 2 or 3 times, and then that's when I realized need to start wearing glasses. Since that time. And this actually happened about 4 or 5 weeks ago. I was using my saw, and I was cutting up some frag plugs, and I was dividing out these things, and I was wearing glasses. But because I was using my saw, the spray got either around or up or behind them or whatever. And yeah, that was a really unpleasant 3 or 4 days. I just walked around and everyone's like, "Oh, are you stoned?" And I'm like, "Well, that'd be nice, but no, definitely not. This is."
I got some coral juice in my eye. Classic story. So embarrassing.
Yeah, no, my wife would take one look at me and she'd just shake her head and walk away sadly. So, I've had that happen. And then I will say the one other time where I had an issue, it was early in the pandemic. I was up late. I was deep into a bottle of scotch, and I was having a grand old time, and I think I had Pirates of the Caribbean on the TV out in the basement, and I'm cutting zoanthid frags. I'm not paying attention, and I got a scrape on my wrist, and I used a little piece of acrylic as a cutting thing. Put that on a towel. And so I kept going, and I rinsed this thing off, but at some point I got enough material into that scrape where it actually got pretty gnarly. It wept for a few days. With ointment and stuff, I was able to get it under control. Didn't have to go to the doctor. Wasn't palitoxined, and now I've got a funky little scar on my right hand, or on my right wrist. But aside from that, no, never been palitoxin. I have plenty of thoughts about that. At the end of the day, it just comes down to respecting the stuff and making good choices.
And don't taste them. Don't eat them.
Don't try and dissolve them with vinegar. And, if something's on a rock, don't try and save the rock. There's always more rocks out there, I see that one come up all the time. Oh, I want to save the rock, but I want to get rid of these. Nah, man, you're just inviting trouble. Do yourself a favor, and there you go.
Nice. Okay, I want to ask you one more question before you go.
Sure.
The thing I think most of the people in this chat will have in common for a question is, okay, they have Zoas and they want them to go faster. If they're starting with a basic reef tank, no dosing, normal light, whatever, and normal, even lowish nutrients, what's the first thing you would change to make them grow faster?
It's always going to be nutrition at the end of the day, and making sure that whether it's Reefroids or it's been my experience that the slurry from mysis, defrosted mysis, or brine shrimp, or Formula 2, Formula 1, whatever the case may be, and just broadcast feeding. That's what's generally going to get them to grow the fastest, as we discussed, sort of at the beginning. If you're dealing with micros, well, they need something that's a little bit smaller in size. So, if it's Phyto or Cyclopes or something else, well, there you go. So, at the end of the day, Zoas will grow as well as anything else in your system. You don't need to dose to have excellent zoanthid growth. It really is just nutrition and just stable alkalinity. And you do those two things, you're going to be in pretty good shape.
Awesome. So the first thing to get stuff to grow faster is to feed them. And that's a really good way to wrap it up.
Yeah. Or, for what it's worth, I know you plugged the Instagram, but I am LittleBigReef on there, just all one word. If anyone's so inclined, feel free to drop me a line. I am very responsive on there. I don't really do Facebook, but Instagram, you can find me there. You can find me over on Reef to Reef as well. So
awesome. All right. Talk to you later, Jay.
All right, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
Bye. All right. Let's do some questions. All right. New York Don asks,
although the information and barriers are far lower when it comes to the hobby, do you feel like it's brought the wrong type of people to the hobby? For example, I see so many reefers keeping fish in terrible conditions that are expert level for the sake of YouTube views on TikTok. Ooh, that's an interesting question. I think that the TikTok example is actually unique because I realized that if you look at not famous, but like if you look at people that have a lot of followers, a lot of viewers, a lot of like that kind of, clout on YouTube, Instagram, they're gonna do things that are more for show, even if it's not necessarily in the best health or sake of the fish. I always get irritated when I see fish, when I see people put like a yellow tang in a 40 gallon or an Achilles in a 60, just because it's like, oh, that's $600 fish, yada, yada, yada. Like, no, man, that's a living fish. That is a living being. Give it the space it needs. You'll never see a fish like an Achilles taking up a 60-gallon tank with the space in the wild.
I would say with when anything gets more popular, the roaches come out of the woodwork. And it's not that these people weren't there before, or the expansion and the explosion in popularity is creating these people or like fostering them. I think it's just a matter of numbers. Like if 0.1% of reef keepers are sociopaths that are willing to keep, a copper band in a 10-gallon or some shit, then that 0.1%, as the hobby grows, will become a larger and larger cohort of people. I don't think, at least as far as I've seen, there's like, aside from like one-offs where like a fashion model will like put a goldfish in a shoe or whatever, for the most part, those things don't explode. Like if a person is endemic to the hobby and they do something dumb or abusive, that thing usually either doesn't go viral or it goes viral for being terrible. I definitely have a glass half full mentality. Like I try to see the best in people, and I've seen numerous cases where famous people who are not endemic to the hobby will do something stupid fish wise, get yelled at by our hobby, and either do better or just leave the hobby and bring the fish back to the store. So I haven't seen, I don't think it's causality. I think it's just a normal correlation with having more people in the hobby. There will, mathematically speaking, be more people who don't do their research or aren't willing to keep fish ethically.
With great knowledge comes great responsibility.
There's an influencer called Aquarium Info on TikTok and Instagram and stuff. She gets like a little bit of heat every time she makes a video because it seems like the way it seems like she's making like all these different cool fish tanks for show and then just doing it wrong, introducing the fish wrong or not prioritizing the fish's health. But every single tank she builds, she keeps, and it's fully cycled and maybe not super well maintained because a lot of the scapes she makes are really intricate and difficult to clean, but that's just algae. Like they're still fish tanks and they're still cool.
Yeah, algae doesn't make a bad fish tank, I think.
There's also a cool guy, what was his name? Let me find him. There's a guy that does reviews on YouTube where he looks at bad fish tanks and he flames them and he roasts them, and people watch that shit like crazy.
I love that. Oh, watch that. I didn't know that. Is that a thing? That's a thing?
Yeah. Let me find it. I'll find it.
That sounds awesome. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I'll watch that.
Yeah, I know. I am awesome. Thanks. God. It's like
there's always going to be every kind of person brought into the hobby. The best that we can do is help guide them. Sometimes there's no like ill intent. They just don't know. AKA me back when I had my 20-gallon freshwater nightmare with goldfish and gourami. Everybody has like those experiences coming into the hobby when they bring it in and they first start. But as you learn, it's a matter of whether you want to keep on continuing those bad practices or swap over and actually keep the fish in better condition, because they do deserve the respect that we can give them. Whatever respect we can give them, they deserve, because we did pull them from their home, their biological setting.
Yeah, very true. All right, you find the next question because I'm finding this YouTube channel for you.
All right. Sky asked, when will stratospheres not be $9 million? I would give it a year. They're going to be like 250 in a year.
So for context, what she's asking is there's a particular morph of Zoa called Stratosphere. Is that the one?
Yep.
That sells for like $1,000 per polyp, which is insane, but apparently it's working because it's been relatively high for a while now. I saw an exosphere for $75. So stuff is going down. But yeah, it's just a matter of time. Like same thing with Krakatoas, same thing with bounce mushroom. Well, bounce mushrooms are an exception.
They're hard to keep, though. They grow slower, like Jay was talking about, because of the whole nutrient effect. They need to be fed.
And because I think when they're pricey like that, people frag them aggressively, like to the point where if once a tiny polyp comes out and starts showing
they
itself,
saw that immediately, and it stunts the growth of the coral.
And
drastically.
Yeah, because it tells the coral that, oh, if I grow more polyps, I'm gonna get cut, so I'm not gonna grow more polyps as fast, and it makes them a lot more susceptible to disease. You're losing your insurance policy because the colonies are so small. Mm-hmm. Yes, Fish for Thought is the channel I was talking about. Fish for Thought. That guy is actually really cool. He has a bunch of lizards too. He's freshwater, but he does fish tank reviews, and there's 207 episodes with thousands of views each. I'll show it to you. I love it. Thank you, Scully.
But yeah, that'll be today's episode of Slice of the Reef, part 1. And thank you again to Jay for joining us. And if you want to buy those from him, he has an amazing collection. Check out his Instagram. He's also on Reef to Reef, LittleBigReef. Even if you don't want to buy anything, just check out what he has. The names and the pictures are great inspiration for anyone who wants to start a Zoa garden, or for anyone that really wants to start Zoas altogether. They're a really good beginner coral, which is why it's so cool that like it's not the kind of coral like Zenny or GSP that you get as a beginner and you just kind of drop it off as you get a bigger, larger tank or as you advance into the hobby, because of all the strains that there are of Zoas.
Yeah. You
get a Zoa as you begin, and as you go into the hobby, you just keep on getting different and more kinds of Zoas, and then you get harder kinds of Zoas. So it's like a little universe within the world of reefing, where there's all of these kinds of species and strains and types, and you can collect them all, and you'll still be collecting until long before you reef.
It's not a Pokemon Red and Blue situation. It's a Pokemon Sun and Moon situation where there's literally 1,000. And the moment you're done collecting them all, and I say this because I have collected all Pokemon, I have a living Pokédex, thank you very much. There will be more Pokemon that you need to collect. It's a constant chase, and this is, at least in Pokemon, they're free unless you play Pokemon Go. With Zoas, you're not going to catch them all. Find the coolest ones, or like aim to get a full rainbow of colors, or aim to get the shiniest ones, or get the ugliest ones and color them up. Just find something that's not collecting them all, because you will never reach that.
You can try to collect them all. It's always cool to like want to collect them all, but the thing is, you got to know that you're going to be collecting for a very, 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 very long time.
Yeah, prove me wrong. You can't prove me wrong.
Would love to see. You can't prove me wrong. Really, it's all knowing. It's true. Yeah. But thank you guys for tuning in today, and we will hopefully see you next week for part 2 of this episode.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Slice of the Reef,
your number one podcast for all things fishy, with your hosts, Giancarlo and Billy. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else that podcasts are held. That way, you'll never miss an episode. If you want to be a part of our podcast, join us on discord.xyz/Slice of the Reef, where we'll be recording in front of a live audience. We also give you a moment at the end of every episode for a live Q&A session, and we're very interactive with our fans, so we'd love for you to join. You can also check out our website for articles, guides, calculators, and information on our upcoming episodes at sliceofthereef.org. Hope to see you guys soon.
Farewell and easy reefing.